Hi everybody, this is Carissa and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Inky Fairy Designs. Today I have another project featuring products from Maker Forte. This is the card that we're going to make, and I am absolutely in love with this technique, so I'm excited to show you how it went. I pulled out a couple of stamps from Maker Forte and some alcohol inks as well as the alcohol lift ink pad. So that was pretty much my only plan as I sat down. I knew I wanted to create a little strip of a background with alcohol inks and then use the lift ink to kind of create the stamped impression. So the stamp set that I ended up using is called Calming Cosmos, and that is in collaboration with Alex Siberia Design. I absolutely love those beautiful florals. There's some really great sentiments in this set, lots of different occasions, and I think it's super versatile, and I'm excited to use it. I've pulled it out many times as I sat down to create, but I finally felt like this was the perfect project to use it on. When I'm doing alcohol ink lifting, I tend to gravitate towards floral designs, but you could use all different kinds of different stamp sets for this technique. So what I did is I just masked off a little strip of area on my Yupo paper with some mint tape from scrapbook.com. I pulled out these alcohol inks, Peach Bellini, Sunset Orange, and Dandelion. And it's funny because when I pulled out my little stash of alcohol inks, I don't tend to normally gravitate towards these warm colors, but they were calling me, and I just thought, okay, let's do warm colors instead of cool colors, and I'm really happy that I did because I love the way that it turned out. So I started by putting the Peach Bellini on this left side, but then I thought, no, I wanted it to be more of an ombre, so I'm going to put the Sunset Orange right over top of that and kind of darken that a bit. Then I'm going to put the Dandelion on the opposite side, so on the right hand side I'm going to put the Dandelion, and I'm just dropping it on there. And now I'm going to put that Peach Bellini in the middle of those two, and I'm going to take my alcohol ink puffer tool. I have no idea what it's actually called, but I love this thing because when I first started working with alcohol inks, I used a straw, and holy crap, that would make me super lightheaded. I mean, when you're working with alcohol inks, depending on how much you're using and how long you're going, like if you're making multiple products or multiple projects and stuff like that, you would definitely want to ventilate your area. Maybe crack open a window, have a fan on, something like that, so that the fumes don't get to you. But using a straw tended to really get the fumes to me, and so I love this little tool. People use they use hair dryers and different things. You don't want to use a heat tool because that's going to be too harsh, especially on the Yupo paper. So anyway, I just prefer using this little puffer tool. It makes it super simple, and I like the look that I get with it. So I just kind of keep layering the alcohol inks until I am satisfied with the way that it looks. Now, I kept all of this video except where I put the card together in real time, which is not something I normally do. If you've looked at or watched any of my previous videos, a lot of times most times I speed it up because it just takes a long time. But this card is super quick and simple. Now, here I go removing the masking tape or the mask tape, and you can see obviously I didn't even notice as I was going along, but the ink did uh, spill or bleed under the tape, but I really like it, so I don't feel like it's a fail. Not one bit. I think it looks pretty cool, and it was unexpected. So it's a happy little accident, as one of my favorite artists likes to say. or liked to say. And I really like the way that it turned out because it kind of, you have that big bold stripe still, and then it gets softer in the edges, which kind of reminds me of watercolor, what I love about watercolor, like the blooms and the soft edges and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it. I think it's fun. Now I'm deciding which floral I want to use from this set, and I'm placing my panel in my Misty because I want to stamp this a couple times with the alcohol lifting. So every time you stamp it, it kind of lifts a little bit more, and it even lifts a little bit just from the residue on the stamp because it's a brand new stamp. I haven't used it yet, so you can see it already kind of lifted a bit of that alcohol ink. But I'm going to still use the alcohol lift ink and lift it even more. So this is such a cool technique. I'm sure everybody has seen this before, but maybe you haven't. This ink just, it lifts the alcohol ink from the paper onto the stamp and leaves behind the negative, I guess it would be, right? And so you end up getting that white lined stamp look instead of the black, and I just really really love it. It's magical to me every time that I do it. So when doing this, I've done this a few times. Sometimes if I'm using like a full stamp, what you can do is you can actually have a clean piece of cardstock, and I'll link to a previous video where I kind of show this technique in a different way, but you can stamp what ink that you lifted onto your stamp onto a clean piece of white cardstock, and then you get like double use, which is pretty cool for card makers, right? Anytime we can like stretch our creative process and create more than one project is always a win, especially if you're like me and time is of the essence. You don't have a lot of it. You work full time, you have children at home, you homeschool, like that is a lot. And so when I have a moment to create, if I can stretch and create more than one, which is kind of hard for me, that's just like a total win in my book. But because I wasn't using the entire image, I didn't do that on this one. But like I said, I'll link a video. You guys could take a look at that if you want. So after you lift the ink, you want to blot it up with like a paper towel. And then I like to kind of use a circular motion and just, I don't know, you're not really burnishing, but you're just kind of, this really draws out the image when you blot it and then wipe it. And you can see how beautiful that looks lifted off of that little strip of color on the panel. So my other thought when I sat down to create was like, wouldn't it be cool if I could somehow create a black line art with the same stamp on the part of the image that is off of that strip, if that makes sense. So I wasn't sure how I was going to do this, but I know I had to do some masking. And masking backwards is kind of weird, but I kind of just eyeballed it, lined it up as best I could, and then I could not get this bottom part of the flower to line up at the same time that I did the top part of the flower. So what I ended up doing is just remove that bottom mask completely, and I'm just going to stamp the top part of the flower. Eventually I'm going to come to that conclusion as I realize how difficult of a time I'm having. So here I go. I'm like, okay, let's not deal with the stems. Let's just do this top part of the flower because I have that lined up pretty good. I'm using the archival ink in black soot because it's permanent, and I felt that it would give me a nice image on the Yubo paper because the Yubo paper is slick for the alcohol ink to move on, and you don't want to use like a pigment ink or something like that because it will take forever to dry if it ever does, and then you run the risk of smearing that, and I didn't want that. So now I'm going to attempt to stamp the stems that are at the bottom, and I think it looks pretty cool. I mean, I wasn't super, I was like, okay, that works. But I like the way, I think I lined it up a little bit better with the stems. So here I am, I thought, well, why don't I just pretend this is like a stamp and put my mask on backwards on the paper where I want it. And then when I shut the Misty door, it's lined up exactly where I want it, and that worked out perfectly. So now you know how to do it without like fussing around like I was. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp those stems, and I really like the way that looked. Of course, I'm using the ink smusher tool from Maker Forte. I love this little tool because it helps me to get a perfect crisp image every single time. And so that's my little effect. I think it looks pretty cool. I like that it has like the white of the flower on the alcohol ink background, and then the black where it kind of fades off. So I talked about how the Yupo paper is super slick. I didn't want to stamp a sentiment on it because I've done that before, and I inevitably smear a word or two. And so I remembered I had this awesome paper pack, and it's filled with sentiments. It's called All Seasons Sentiments. It's designed by Jess Francisco, and it is double-sided. So you see there's tons of sentiments, white on black, and then if you flip it over, there's the same sentiments, black on white. And there are tons in here. There's 24 sheets, 6 by 6. All occasions throughout the whole year. So I love this one that says, I need more friends like you. Full disclosure here, I did try to cut out a different sentiment, and I cut off one of the bottoms of the letter. So just keep that in mind when you're using this. You may want to just cut it out, hand cut it out, because it's not always easy to line up, and they aren't in line like across the sheet. So some may be a little bit lower than like the other one on the other side, if that makes sense. So I decided I wasn't super happy with the way the flower stamped on black above the top. And so I thought, well, I think I'm just going to cover that up. Just trying to figure out where I want to line this sentiment. It looked great anywhere I tried. I mean, I could have left it right up there and it would have looked super cute. I wanted to add a bit of a pattern background onto the base of my card, so I pulled out this paper pack, which is called Rosy Days. It's Alex Siberia Designs, so it paired really pretty with this stamp set because I think some of the florals actually match or are similar. And this paper collection is absolutely stunning. I actually want to like fussy cut some of those beautiful florals out and create a card, so maybe I'll do that in my next video. But yeah, I just chose this very simple kind of circular dot pattern for the background. I die cut my alcohol base, my alcohol panel with like a deckle edge die. And now I'm just putting it all together. So I sped this up because, I mean, I think we all know how to put cards together. We just slap some adhesive on, figure out some layers, and you put it together. It's not rocket science at this point. I really wanted you to see the alcohol ink part in real time because it doesn't take that long. I want you to see how a quick card can come together that looks like you spent maybe quite a bit of time on it. But you could make a ton of these and have them on hand and use all kinds of different sentiments with it. That's what's great about floral stamps, is that they just fit any occasion that you need. So I'm putting that on with a little bit of foam tape. And then this was a cool discovery. I have this little caddy behind me in my in my craft room, and I put all of my like fun bits and pieces from Maker Forte on it so that it's on hand because I work with them and I want those things to be right in front of me because out of sight, out of mind. So I looked back over there because I thought this card needs just a little bit something else, like some gems or sequins, which I tend to use. But then I saw this little jar of these crown jewels gems, and I thought, oh my gosh, these are perfect. These are called Phoenix. I did not see them on the website as of today, but you could keep checking, and there's tons of other great colors. There's one called Sunburst that would work really well if you wanted to recreate this exact card. Um, but what's cool is that, like I told you, I don't normally gravitate towards these warm colors. So when I turned around and I saw those gemstones, they were like the exact match. Like they shift from orange to yellow, and it was just perfect. So I don't know, divine intervention, mirror providence, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but it worked out and I'm super excited about that. I talk in the blog post about how I don't really sit down and have a super big plan when I'm creating. I create and allow the process to take me where it does. I always know kind of what products I want to use, what mediums I want to use, but as far as like what it's going to turn into, no idea every single time. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the process along with me, and I would love it if you gave this technique a try. And here are some close-ups. You can see that beautiful lifting right there. I just think it's gorgeous. And these sentiment strips are a must in my opinion, because if you don't want to stamp or if you're working with a slick surface, they're perfect to cut out and just add. And then those little gemstones were just the perfect touch. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I will have hopefully 2 videos a month for you featuring Maker Forte products. And until next time, thanks again for watching. Bye.